want to take you back in time about 27 years. I was 6 years old, sitting in the corner of my mother's basement with a friend of mine. I'll call her Emily. I was admiring the perfect freckles on her face and her auburn hair. My mom called down the stairs, "Girls, Emily's mom is here." In that moment, I looked into Emily's green eyes, and with my 6-year-old confident voice, I said to her, "I can die happy if I could just have one kiss." Emily then took my face in her hands, she kissed me, and then ran upstairs to leave our play date with her mom. I stayed there, mesmerized, held to the earth in pure bliss. So I used to tell this story and jokingly say, I've always been a hopeless romantic. Yet more aptly, I now see this as an early reflection of my life as a hopeful romantic. Those days brought on my first awareness of my love of women. Each night, I fell asleep praying to the God of my childhood I would wake up a boy. If I were a boy, I would be the best boyfriend. I could fall deeply in love with the Emilys of the world. Hopeful, I was. As an only child and the child of divorce, I lived in my imagination. When I went to the pool, I was one of the muscle men from Baywatch. The fact that the swimsuit I was wearing didn't quite fit the picture didn't matter. A little older, on my bike, I imagined my name was Brian, and I was a bicycle cop on that terrible show, Pacific Blue. And while watching anything Disney, I was never the princess. Of course, this snapshot alone could warrant another talk in its entirety about continuing problematic models of masculinity kids get to choose from, but that's not for today. Around the same time in my childhood, hiking in the mountains with my family, as I stood in a cold Colorado river, I looked at my legs submerged under the water and I thought, I wish my legs were as white as they look underwater. I didn't realize the importance of this experience. In fact, I didn't recall it at all until in my 20s when I was working as an advisor at a summer justice camp. When we were being divided up into affinity groups, the director placed me in the Latinx group. This was new, but felt good, exciting. And while listening to the narratives of others in the group, mostly young folks, so many memories came back to me. Being encouraged to take French in high school rather than Spanish, as I was told, was a dirty language. The river and wishing for those whiter legs. You know, it's no doubt the light skin I inherited over a generation removed from my Mexican roots contributed to the erasure of these memories. Today, my gender becomes central, yet the intersections of these identities, the capacity to pass, both in my whiteness and my masculinity, remain central to the questions I ask and the spiritual work I engage daily. When puberty struck, I started to pretending to be the girl my changing body and society told me I was. And lucky for me, it worked pretty well. In many ways, I was succeeding at passing without having any idea what that meant. Then, at 14, that ripe age before high school, while sitting next to my friend Anne on the playground, I felt her next to me, and that rush hit, those heartstrings of childhood sounded again. But this time, instead of mesmerized in bliss, I was held to the bench by deep fear and dread. What could I do? I needed to talk to someone. I went to an adult as kids were told to trust, a priest. This was the very first person outside of an online chat room I talked to about being gay. He told me that Jesus could take it away. I could pray it away in the same way he had turned his desire for his own sister away to Jesus. The first person I told I was gay equated it with incest. Not helpful. I do wonder now if he's free. 10 years later, I found myself teaching elementary school while living in Ghana, West Africa. When I went there, I was out as gay back home, and I thought the identity stuff was behind me. One day, while wearing my school uniform, a dress, a student said to me, "Miss Page, "You walk like a man." Another day, while walking in a market, a stranger called me sir. I was feeling like a gay woman, but somehow others were sensing something I had tucked away. That pit emerged in my chest. Ghana was starting to show me I was trans. A few years later, I was working with queer and trans youth at a community-based organization. And by this time, these inner jostlings were screaming at me. I was holding space for young folks to freely express themselves, try on pronouns, and embrace their fluidity. I was there for them, no matter the cost, but I remained afraid to look in my own mirror. Finally, the pits of avoidance and fear became more painful than the perceived risks of heeding my own truth. I slowly started to come out as transgender. Around the same time, I attended a happy hour with other youth organizers in the community. When it was over, I overheard my friend, a black woman, tell another friend of ours, "Well, you know, it was fine and all white women, and then there was me and Paige." I felt a sense of pride in being seen as what I wasn't. I wasn't a white woman, although I can't completely abandon those fibers in me. And yet, I also felt a sense of unknowing, a fear of what this not being might mean in terms of what I was or am. I believe that in those liminal spaces, in the in-between, in the not yet, lies great possibility. While uncomfortable at first, I'm now excited about the imaginative potential of uncertainty. Collective liberation relies on an earnest engagement with the source of our own oppression. What are the roots of our own oppression? Our own anxiety, fear, and loathing, our inherited shame and sense of not enough. What are the in-between spaces in our lives, our identities, that make us feel pushed to choose when we're far more beautifully complex? I think I started my dissertation at age 6 in the basement with Emily. At some point, that wholeness I felt as a kiddo faltered. And later, I began the journey of reclaiming and embracing that wholeness, that imaginative potential. The stories I share with you today are about becoming, about imagining what isn't yet, and some pain. These stories, though, are mostly about a burgeoning love, a radical self-love that continues to emerge as a divine source of freedom. I ask, what's possible in education, research, and beyond when we lean into what isn't here, but what could be? What comes from the queer imagination? Today, in this flesh, I'm the grandchild of a Mexican immigrant, the first daughter to my Polish father, and my hippie, mystic aunt's nephew. I honor my transness with the gender pronouns they and them. I'm not a woman, nor a man, white and a person of color. I'm the 6-year-old who could die happy from Emily's kiss. And beyond loving women, beyond politicized decisions of this or that or because of, today I'm still a hopeful romantic. And I see this hope as critical to our shared journeys into getting free.